Attention on deck. Welcome to the Warships Podcast with your hosts, Kelord, Kami Samurai, and Vanacera.
Hello and welcome to episode 82 of the Warships Podcast. I'm your host, Kelorn, mostly recovered from the jet lag finally. Radar X from Wargaming North America and Kami and Vanessa are here today as we have an important announcement to make. So without further ado, Radar, Kami, take it away.
So yeah, we're really excited. King of the Sea is back. We know a lot of you participated in King of the Sea 5 and had a lot of fun. We're excited to bring King of the Sea back, but this time it is King of the Sea Supremacy. We are bringing it back to North America, and it's going to be a fairly focused event just on that continent. And Kami, add some details.
All right, so I know everybody still might be a little bit tired from clan battles. I know I am, and I know Kelorn is. And I know a lot of the other clans out there, but it's time for King of the Sea. And it's going to be, 3 weekends of a lot of fun. The group stage is on the 28th of April, and it has a 1800 EST start time. And I would tell you guys this is going to be the longest night. Now, there is a caveat. The 8 top teams from clan battles, based on the ranking at the end of the season, if you are playing, you will not have to play until the knockout stage. So the way it's going to work is if the top 8 teams from clan battles sign up to play King of the Sea, then those 8 teams will be the seeded teams. Now, say the number 1 team and the 3 and the 4 teams play, but not the other teams in the top 8, then the seeding will move down based accordingly on the ranking. So you could be the 11th ranked team in clan battles, but if teams above you do not play King of the Sea, you could become one of those seeded teams. Now, the total number of teams that will be playing are 40 teams. There's 8 seeded teams and 32 teams in the group stage. And the way the group stage is going to work, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be 4 teams per group. So you're looking at 8 groups, and 2 teams from those groups will advance, and they will play a round robin during the group stage. So you'll play every team in that group in a best of 3. So you could potentially play 9 games that night. So if you plan on signing up, be prepared for the group stage to be a long day and night.
We did the group stage last time, Kami, and it was pretty exhausting by the end of the night, I remember.
Yeah, it's going to be that's going to be the longest day. And that's going to be the day that I would tell you to, have your Red Bull or your energy drink or your coffee like some of us, and be prepared to play some games. Now, I encourage teams to sign up for this because there is only a total of 32 group stage spots, and it's first come, first serve. There's not going to be, I want to sign up, but I don't know. I mean, if you don't sign up, there's a good chance you're not going to play because the teams will sign up for this quickly, and I can guarantee you we'll have a full tournament. But the group stage, went over a little bit. Then if you make it out of the group stage, you move to the knockout stage, which will be on the 4th of May. It also has a 1800 EST start time. Now, this is where the winners, the first and second place teams from the group stage, will end up playing. And the way the bracket is set up, and there will be a bracket and everybody will be able to see it. I believe the way it is a first place team will play a second place team from a corresponding part of the bracket, and then the winner of that will move on to the next knockout stage, and that's where the seeded teams come into play. And the winners of the first part of the knockout stage will play the 8 seeded teams, which will get you your quote unquote round of 16. And that's where the interesting part becomes, because some of the teams that have been sitting out, this is their time to start playing. And, if anybody's ever, March Madness has ever happened, or anybody watch March Madness, this is where some of the upsets may or may not occur. Now, it'll be a lot of fun. The quarterfinals and the semifinals, that's going to be on the 5th of May, which is a Sunday, I believe. So that weekend is chock full of King of the Seas, and that has a 1500 EST start time. And that's going to be kind of where it determines who gets to go to the big dance, the third place match and the finals match, which will be on the weekend of the 12th of May, which also has an 1800 EST start time. Now, King of the Sea Supremacy is going to be an awesome event. Wargaming has been involved the whole way. Radar has been the man, and me personally, I want to thank him. Being a new admin with the King of the Sea, I want to thank him for all of the hard work he's put in and all the support he's put in. Now, we're going to go over the rules a little bit. They're a little bit different than clan battles. It's a 9v9 format. You also get, this is where all the CV players come out of the woodworks, all 7 of them, because it's not a dead class for this because we want CVs. So there's 1 CV allowed per team. And the biggest thing besides CVs, I think, is the 2 BB limitation. So teams are allowed to bring 2 battleships. So that is different than clan battles. In clan battles, it's a 77 with 1 battleship. So now cruiser players might have to pay a little bit more attention because, hey, they could get shot from battleships from both sides. You never know. Let's see. What else would be important? Let's see. We will have a sign up link that you guys will be able to sign up to. But I mean, all mods, I think this is kind of big because there's always a question about mods. Do I play the game vanilla? Do I play the game with, tracers? There's a lot of mods out there, but everything that is in Aslan's mod pack and the Wargaming mod pack, those are allowed for now. So no questions asked. Those are happening. We'll have referees, all the things that you may have questions about that come up during the tournament. We have people that will handle that, so don't worry about that. It's going to be a well-organized tournament, and I don't think is there anything else? Is there anything I missed, Radar? I got the times. I got the dates.
No. Yeah, no, you did miss one important thing, something I'm personally excited about for the first time. We are going to bring folks out to the Wargaming office to actually cast the final matches. Kami, Sea Raptor, and No Zoot for You will actually be in the Wargaming offices on Saturday, May 12th, doing commentary for you guys and, making this, a memorable moment. We're hoping to see some great matchups, and those guys will be helping you walk through them.
Oh, yeah, that's what I forgot. Yeah, that's important, right? Seems like a good thing.
It is a good thing, but yeah, we're very excited about this. I personally, I've worked with a few volunteer groups in the past to do other events for other games, and prior in my career, this has always been a passion of mine, and I'm very grateful all the work these guys put in. They don't get enough credit for what they do. This is a metric, the things I've had to do are things, but it's a fraction of the work that these guys have had to pull off to make this happen. So we're very grateful for it.
I remember something you guys forgot. What about the prizes, Radar and Kami?
There are no prizes. It's all about. No, I'm kidding. There is prize support, and it's a prize support up to the top 24 teams. So you make it out of the group stage, you get prize support. All the details for that will be written down, and you guys will be able to see that, the breakdown of it. So that's just know you make it out of that group stage, you will see a prize, and it might even just be a firm handshake, right? Right, Radar?
It might be a firm. Let's not overcommit, but yeah, the pricing will be fairly comparable to prior King of the Sea regional events, and we think people will be pleased.
Oh, I know something I did forget. It is tier 10, guys. Tier 10. I know that I will have somebody to be like, what tier is it? It's tier 10. We want to see big battleships, and radar minnows are a plus as well. And carriers, right? I think that's going to be the thing that I look forward to most, is just seeing the difference, in clan battles where there's no carrier, and then you move to a format like this and you do see a carrier. I think that's going to be the thing that's going to, for me anyway.
No, that'll definitely be interesting from that perspective. The kind of cool thing is that you're going to be able to practice a bit in ranked battles being tier 10 as we lead up to these King of the Sea stuff going on, because ranked battles start on the 27th.
Ranked?
That's accurate, yeah.
Oh, man. So all you competitive folks out there, you have a lot to do.
It's better than having nothing to do.
That is true. But again, I think we covered the majority of it. I mean, we have a document as well that will be posted that you can read, all through all the rules. If you have any questions, feel free to contact one of the King of the Seas admins. Vass I'm going to give a quick shout out to Vass. He's been doing these type of things since, it's forever, since Supremacy League first started. And he puts in a lot of time, a lot of work to make these tournaments happen. So, if you see him in game or, you see him on the Discord, just feel free to, tell him a thanks, because a lot of these things that have happened, wouldn't be possible without him putting in all the time and effort that he's done, and Kale doing all the back end things. And, these guys, they don't have to do any of this. They do it because they like the game and they want to see the game succeed. So, just feel free to drop them a thanks, because, they're the ones that have allowed this to happen, by putting in all that time and effort.
I will say that, if you do see them in game, that is a pretty rare event for those guys, because they have so much work to do.
Yeah. But, we look forward to seeing all the teams come out. We look forward to seeing the competition. Look forward to seeing what you guys come up with for strategies. And there is a map pool. That'll also be open. You guys will be able to see that with, all the information. But I'll just tell you guys that the map pool is Trap, Warrior's Path, Loop, Sleeping Giant, Atlantic, Tears of the Desert, and Islands of Ice. And all the maps will be played in tournament domination mode if possible. Otherwise, it will be in standard domination with the 3 cap option selected. And I know how much people love Cyclones in World of Warships, but they are disabled. So no Cyclone fighting. So it'll be a fair battlefield for everyone.
What? No big race? No polar? I mean, no really small maps?
We thought about it. We even thought about putting Ocean in there, but people didn't want to have the historically accurate map in there, so we had to go with some maps that had islands.
Fair enough. Well, guys, remember the signups, they start tomorrow, correct, Radar?
That is correct. They should start tomorrow morning.
Oh, sorry. We are recording on Thursday, so it'll be Friday. The 20th of April is going to be when you can start to sign up. So don't hesitate, because there's only so many slots. But that brings us to our next topic. Last week, Radar X and I flew out of Austin with BTED and met in St. Petersburg, Russia, with the developers and producers of World of Warships, along with almost 30 other community contributors and regional publishers from around the world. The trip, from my perspective, was amazing. From things as simple as getting to meet people like Euro, Takru, Jingles, Dojo Kame, Ture, Noi Noi, and so many others that I can't honestly name all of them, to just networking with the people so that we can have them on future podcasts. I've got a list of at least 10 different guests to come on for podcasts over the next few months. So you guys should definitely be looking forward to some pretty good content coming your way. But then we even got to ask the devs questions that have kind of been on our minds literally for years. And so, getting to sit down and be in the same room and talk back and forth, that's kind of the best thing that we were able to experience. Radar, from your perspective, I guess, how surprised were you that when you first heard that Octavian and Evan and the Global CC program were going to put together a summit on this scale? And, kind of what important objectives were met or not met during the trip?
So, in my experience, I've actually done a number of these, not necessarily with Wargaming, and putting players in front of the development team is almost always a positive thing, like 99.9% of the time. When you are actually putting the people playing the product, understanding the product, in front of the people actually making the game, the opportunities for dialogue and understanding, even just making developers appear as the human beings they are. These are real people that make these decisions. You may not like some of the things that come out, but someone is sitting down and making that decision. They're a real person with feelings and emotions. So I think having these meetings with you guys was super important for us to do, and to kind of explain where things are going. I think sharing the roadmap was amazing. I think getting that information out there through you guys to the rest of the community and getting your feedback right there about some of the upcoming changes was incredibly beneficial, not only to folks like me who could kind of see how the community is going to react to them, but also for the development team who's making the changes. I think it was a great success. I had very, very little complaints other than jet lag. This was just a great event. Honestly, I wish we could have brought more people. It's just really far away. And I overall thought it was a really good event.
So I guess one of the things that kind of surprised me is just kind of the breadth and of information that got shared. And, obviously there's a whole bunch of it that we can't talk about. We can say that we saw the CV rework, but we really can't say more than that. Were you surprised that they were willing to share that much? You mentioned that a lot of the things that they shared were things that you hadn't even seen from them yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the roadmap, these are things. A lot of it we had known was coming, but you guys actually got to see some of the first implementation. Obviously, you guys can't talk about the CV rework, and neither can I. But, I was sitting there experiencing it along with you guys. This was an early iteration. This was something that the team wanted direct feedback on, and it was something I got to see the first time as well. So you guys actually got a first look at a number of things. A lot of things that were talked about in concept, things that the upcoming changes, some of the cruiser things they shared with you, the matchmaker changes. These are things that, I knew were kind of being worked on, but actually seeing them presented and the specifics, I was right there along with you guys learning these things as well. And it was interesting.
So given what happened with this summit, do you imagine that they will go forward with doing another one in the future? Probably with, I would imagine, with different invitees, maybe even people like Kami or Vanessa.
I think it's entirely possible. I think these types of summits again are super beneficial to the development team. I think it's a great opportunity for the folks that are doing the community management work to meet with you guys and get your feedback. I think the design map thing was an incredible. That's actually, despite how many of these done, I've never actually seen that done before. I've never actually seen a development team sit down with players and design a piece of content to actually, try and prototype input, into the game and make it playable. That to me, I thought was an incredible idea, and I'm glad it went as well as it did.
It was actually really cool just to see something that got created by the people there, so that was really, and then we actually got to play on it. So I guess, Kami, did you have any questions for us, about how things went, or anything that you were curious about?
Let's see. So I'm happy you guys got out of there before the whole Syria thing happened.
Yeah, you and us both.
But the food, that's my question. How was the food?
Radar, you want to go first?
I'm a pretty finicky eater, and if I'm really honest, the first night I had beer and pizza. But I think, I think it's very interesting. It was a very different cultural experience for me. I'm not, my palate is very Americanized. I like burritos and pizza and things like that. But there were some interesting things. A lot of fish. Fortunately, most people that went were very, very open, and I think they tried some things they're not going to try anywhere else.
Well, that's certainly true. The kind of the highlight of one of the highlights of the trip for me, Radar, was that I was talking to Sub at the end of the first day, and Sub Octavian's like, we're eating in a palace tonight, right? And I'm like, we're eating in a what? And sure enough, they brought us to what's known as Menshikov Palace. It's now a museum, but it also has a restaurant in it. And then we had this private room with like a full-on 7-course formal dinner with all these nerds in like sweatshirts and jeans, which was hilarious. Well, they're with like the waiters are in tuxes and whatnot. And, each meal was, really kind of seemed like traditional Russian food. And, there were things in there that tasted really amazing. And there were things in there that tasted pretty awful. The jellied beef probably was the one that kind of sticks out in my mind. But, the camaraderie of all the CCs that were there, the good times that we had, just the amazing setting that we were in, that was well above and beyond what I was expecting from that trip, if that makes sense.
No, I think it was a really beneficial time. I mean, obviously, when you bring folks out, you want to take them out, you want to entertain them. But what I looked at from these meals, it was not necessarily so much where we ate or how nice it was. Actually, being able to sit down with a variety of different people, talking to community contributors from Europe, talking to community contributors from Asia, kind of seeing not only the cultural differences, but what their thoughts and needs are about the game and how they differed from our folks over in North America. I found it incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I mean, the last night we were at the bar that we went to after dinner, and I was sitting at a table with people from 4 different regions and 7 different countries. And it was like, this is pretty cool. like that I was kind of expecting we would kind of stick together, like the NA people would stick together, EU people would stick together, but that largely didn't happen. There was a lot of cross communication between the regions that I was really happy to see.
Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was a great melting pot, honestly, to use a very, very cliched American history term. Getting all these regions together and having them all talk. And honestly, some of these people were notorious in their region, but now actually meeting them face to face, I especially maybe watching two particular CV players play against each other, I thought was a pretty incredible moment for me personally.
Yeah, there was some little rivalry going on there, that's for sure. Well, if you want to read more about the trip from my perspective or see the pictures that I took, we'll definitely include links to my travel blog and photo album in the description, in the episode description. Radar, we want to thank you again for the opportunities that you guys at Wargaming have provided us here on the podcast. The invite to go to St. Petersburg and Kami coming to Austin to cast the King of the Seas. This is a kind of a new experience for us, and we are excited about what the future holds for the podcast and for World of Warships in general.
We're excited too, and we're glad you guys can be a part of some of the things we're putting together, and we're hopeful for the future. We want to continue to do things like this.
For sure. Kami, did you have any closing thoughts before Radar has to go back to work?
I don't think so. I talk to Radar on pretty much a daily basis, right, Radar? We have our interactions about firm handshakes.
Yeah, firm handshakes.
But no, it has been awesome working with you and working with Wargaming as a member of the podcast and all the opportunities that we've received, past, present, and future. And we look forward to just continuing the relationship and watching it grow.
With all that out of the way, we have a massive number of topics to cover this week. But before we get started on that, I want to give a quick programming note for next week. I will be out of town Wednesday to Friday next week, so you guys aren't deprived of two podcasts in the month of April. We'll be recording on Tuesday with Arun, where we'll go into depth on the ships to use for Season 9 of Ranked Battles, with a focus on the Tier 10 ships. So we will not be covering Ranked this week, so tune in next Tuesday for some cool info on what ships we think you should play, as the season will be starting on April 27th, which is next Friday. First up, we need to talk about our impressions of the revised USN heavy cruisers Salt Lake City, Astoria, and Pittsburgh, which are, respectively, the down-tiered versions of Pensacola, New Orleans, and Baltimore. Also included in this round of testing for us was Columbia, the Tier 8 version of Cleveland. It should be noted, however, that some changes have already been announced for the next round of testing on these ships via the dev blog, and we want to kind of keep that in mind as we're talking here today between the three of us. They are a base range buff for Cleveland from 13.3 to 14.2 kilometers. This makes her max upgraded range 15.6 kilometers. A reload buff from 7 to 6.5 seconds. This is kind of creeping closer to the 10 rounds per minute of the pre-nerf Cleveland. Buffalo is getting a detectability nerf, probably due to her kind of excessive performance at Tier 9. Pittsburgh is getting her 27mm armor plate back from her days as a Tier 9 cruiser, and she's also getting a reload buff from 13 seconds down to her Tier 9 version that had a 10 second. So we're looking at a Baltimore with a 10-second reload at Tier 8, which is pretty insane. Salt Lake City is getting her historical 203mm 55 caliber Mark 14 guns. This upgrades her shells slightly, but does not appear to address the turret traverse issue that I honestly think is the biggest issue with the Tier 6 version of Pensacola Salt Lake City. So with all that said, guys, what have your impressions been of these four ships, Salt Lake City, Astoria, Pittsburgh, and Columbia, in the last week and a half or so that we've had to test them?
I still hate the Cleveland, but I've hated the Cleveland for forever. I feel like the Salt Lake City is almost, I wouldn't say too good, but it's borderline really good for Tier 6. Now, of course, it does have some drawbacks. The turret traverse is awful. I mean, it's molasses slow, and the detection on that ship is really high. But the gun performance on that ship against equal tier, lower tier, or even up tiered cruisers, it's really good. As long as you're paying attention, you have your turrets on the right side. I find that ship to be very rewarding gun wise. Everything else, don't get hit. I'll just say that. It keeps that same characteristic as the Pensacola. Just don't get shot at, and you should be okay. But I think for tier 6, it's in a good spot with guns. I don't know about the turret traverse, like you've already said, it's pretty slow, but I think that ship will be fine. The tier 7, what'd you say? It's the Astoria, right?
Yes, it's the Astoria, the New Orleans clone.
And everybody knows the story of the Astoria, right?
She was one of the 3 cruisers sunk in the Battle of Savo Island, I believe.
That is correct. One of the 3 New Orleans cruisers, the poor class. And that doesn't even include the Chicago losing its bow, but we won't go there. But it's fine at tier 7. I think the biggest thing you lose, right, is the concealment module at tier 8. I think is the biggest loss. But again, the American 8-inch guns AP performance is great. And as long as you pay attention and you plan accordingly, that's what I like to tell cruiser players. You got to plan accordingly. You got to be a couple steps ahead of what you want to do. Just like a battleship player, you got to know, hey, this enemy cruiser might be coming around this corner. I better have AP loaded so that I can give them the big hit instead of just plinking away with HE. So the gun performance wise is fine. Techability, I think even without the concealment module is fine. I think at tier 7, it honestly is one of the better cruisers, all around cruisers. You get decent AA, you get good guns, decent range. Not much you can complain about. I mean, I guess like Vanessa would say, no torpedoes, but other than that, I think it's fine.
I kept reaching for the radar personally, but
yeah, and I think for people that have played the game for a while and people that have played the New Orleans at tier 8 and had the radar, I think that's going to be something that's going to be a little hard to get used to. You're going to be like, oh, there's DD right there smoking up. Hit that Oh, I don't have that radar. But other than that, I think it'll be fine. Tier 8, man, the Baltimore at tier 8, getting a reload buff, getting its 27 millimeter bow armor back. I'm telling you guys right now, this is going to be the best tier 8 cruiser, hands down. Easily.
Oh, yeah. No question.
And people are going to be like, well, what about the Kutuzov? I'm like, sure. Okay.
There's still the aspect of range.
Yeah, there is. But you combine the concealment of the ship, you combine the rate of fire buff, you combine the ability for it to tank shells better now. You're going to be fine, I think. I think you just got to get yourself in a good position, and you'll be APing things like no other. And then I'll let you guys talk about the Cleveland, because I don't care for the Cleveland. I've never cared for the Cleveland. I think it's just, I know it's the most popular ship on. I think it's pretty much the most popular ship on. I know it is on the NA server by a lot. I don't know about the other servers, but it's definitely a popular ship. But I've never been a fan of the Cleveland. I don't know. I think even now with the range buff, cool. You could shoot rainbows out even farther, I guess.
Well, I guess one question we had before we talk about Cleveland for you, Kami, is this buff to the tier 8 version of Baltimore was a little surprising to me. Giving it its 27 millimeter bow back, yeah, that's cool. Not a big deal, I didn't think. But giving it the 10-second reload buff at tier 8, I just felt like that was kind of excessive, and especially when they're planning on keeping it, so far it seems, the 13-second reload of Buffalo at tier 9.
Well, the Pittsburgh doesn't have a heal, right?
No, it doesn't have a heal.
Yeah, and I think what this is an trying to offset is, giving it a little bit more oomph because you're not going to be able to heal back that HP. I've honestly been an advocate for. I feel like a lot of cruisers should have the repair, the repair party, just because I feel like it gives them a little bit more on the survivability aspect. Because if you think about it, cruisers are going to get donked by battleships regardless if the battleship is a good shot, right? But it's more of healing back some of that health. So maybe you're in a fight with another cruiser or you're hunting a destroyer, but I'm getting way off topic. But the Pittsburgh needed help. I think when I played it, I found it to be just okay at tier 8. But now I honestly feel like with the reload buff, it could become very oppressive at tier 8. on other ships of equal or lower tier. Up tier, I still think it's going to get its Cummings too, but equal or lower tier, be prepared, because good luck dealing with it with 15-inch guns and it's sitting there bow on looking at you laughing. We've all been there, right? You're like, man, I could, when you see a Baltimore and a Des Moines, sitting next to each other, who do you shoot? I always shoot the Des Moines because I know I could pin its bow. And then you find that funny, but tier 8, when you start thinking about the ships that are at tier 8, and lower, it's gonna be a ship that's gonna cause a lot of problems for battleship players, especially battleship.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, with the cruisers you've got at tier 8 right now, what do you got? Charles Martel, you've got Edinburgh, which this version of Baltimore will eat Edinburgh's alive.
Mm-hmm.
Mogami, which this Baltimore will eat it alive. You've got Hipper and Eugen, both of which are okay, but man, they're going to get out DPM'd like crazy by this thing. I mean, I'm fully on board with what you said, Kami, about this being by far the best tier 8 cruiser.
Yeah, I think if the changes go through and are kept, it'll be awesome. And people would be like, well, what about the Kutuzov? And I was like, yes, the Kutuzov will win the DPM fight, but if you get into a straight one-on-one, the AP for the Pittsburgh / Baltimore is just, you're probably going to win. But I'll tell you this, it's all going to come down to how you play it, because the range, the one thing that Vanessa mentioned was the range. And that is one thing the Kutuzov does have. You can just stay out of the range and just rain HE on it. And what's it going to do? It can't catch you. It's like the Pittsburgh can't catch you. So I'll tell you this, it's buffs that I feel were needed, but I'll tell you that they could be buffs that go completely overboard, and you could see a lot of I wouldn't say whining or complaining, but questioning why the ship got both of the buffs at the same time. If that makes sense.
Vanessa, what about you? What are your thoughts on getting to test these cruisers, and especially Columbia, because Kami isn't a big fan of Cleveland?
Well, it's rather funny. Salt Lake City, yeah, I think I had like one decent match in that ship when I tested it. The turrets definitely are glacier slow. I mean, just terribly slow. And it really makes it difficult when you are trying to sit there and dodge shots, but kind of line your guns up for your reprisal shot. And it's just, it's really, really tough. So I hope they do something in that aspect. I did feel the guns were strong and good, but I mean, you're a glass cannon. So you're literally like head on a swivel trying to watch every shot come in and dodge those shots. And sometimes it's impossible. I finally got to test Astoria. I put in some games last night, and the guns actually felt pretty decent, but I remember in one match, I was trying to move around this York, wasn't even targeted, wasn't even detected, and a stray Congo shell like hit my Citadel, like half my health gone. And it was like, wow, really? And it kind of brought home like, yeah, these cruisers, they're still glass, they're Citadels, or they're glass cannons. So Astoria, I went up and down with it. I don't know. I feel like if I'm going to play a USN cruiser at that tier, I might as well play Indianapolis. Yes, the guns feel great, but the AA, I had a couple carriers. I had a couple tier 6 carriers in the match, and the AA felt okay-ish. I didn't really have any good long AA on it. So it was all medium to close range, and it was just, meh, I guess. Again, no radar. I did get into a couple USN cruiser fights and, was bouncing shells and, kind of wrecking the other cruiser. And that was, satisfying, but I don't know. Astoria, I guess it felt okay, but I just wasn't enjoying it. Pittsburgh, definitely, you could feel the nerfs. Now, I'm really excited to see, this reload and the bow change to it. And people have been asking me constantly when testing the Buffalo, how do I feel it compares to the Baltimore? And I tell people like, well, Buffalo has really good alpha potential. And I've gotten some really good hits out with the Buffalo, but Baltimore is so much better in the defensive department. I feel you can dodge, you could take hits better, you can conceal better, you can maneuver better. Baltimore very much is a ship that if you're paying attention, you can make it really difficult for the enemy to kind of, deal with you. And Buffalo, I don't really feel can do that like Baltimore can. So I'm excited to see what they do with Pittsburgh, bringing these changes back. I still feel that the range will be kind of an issue. And, maybe it's going to be like Otago, because Otago has a pretty short range, as well as Mogami. So we've got that aspect of, those changes coming there. Columbia, unlike the heavy cruisers, I actually have, been taken to Columbia quite well, even with the short range. And I've actually had a lot of success with it. It's been a good challenge to kind of challenge my play style and do good with the ship. Now, is everyone going to do good with this? I don't know. Kami, you do great with the USN heavy cruisers, and I don't have the same success, but the light cruisers have been seemingly doing okay. So I'm really looking forward to testing the other ones, especially Seattle, obviously, and Worcester. So
don't forget Helena, because Helena with 15 guns at tier 7 wants to blow my mind.
Yeah, that's going to be good too. The only thing is, I want to see what utility it brings, because we don't have, we suspect that we're not going to get radar at that tier. But if we do, that's going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah, for me, the biggest problem I had with Columbia was definitely the range, and the 14.3 kilometer range was quite difficult to use. The good side was that its radar and its detection circle are virtually identical. So if you're detected, you can use your radar and know that you're going to hit the guy. So I liked that. I had a hard time with it being in good places with it because of the range limitations. I don't want to go too far on these cruisers, just because Kami and Vanessa, you guys covered them pretty much what I was going to say. But do you guys have any last thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, with Columbia, with the short range in the concealment, it really kind of lends itself more to the destroyer hunter role. And even when you're kind of perma-spotted and everyone is shooting at you, you're still the Cleveland, which is pretty notorious for trolling hits and being able to just kind of dodge and weave, just like Baltimore. So I kind of, there was this one game where it was 4v1 and I was retreating. I was shooting on the cap, keeping the enemy from capping our base. It was a standard battle, and actually had an amazing game because I had like 30 plus defender flags, which obviously if you get that, you're going to have a crazy good game. We ended up winning because I stalled. And even though I sunk, I took down, 1 DD, burned a battleship pretty good, and 2 other cruisers. And this was a run and gun fight for several minutes, and we ended up winning, and it was a good game. So, I mean, even if you get caught out in open ocean, if you can still dodge shots, it's going to be good.
You want to know a ship that the Cleveland / Columbia doesn't troll? The Fuso. And I've shot many of Cleveland's with the Fuso. The one thing I'd have to say about the Columbia is I've heard it from a lot of people. They're like, "Oh, it's great at hunting destroyers." I mean, it has all the tools. It has a lot of guns. It has the radar. But the one thing I'll tell you that it doesn't have, it does not have the gun performance to reliably hit destroyers because of the shells. I mean, I multiple times, and maybe I just sucking the ship, but multiple times I've had DDs sub 10 kilometers, and I'm shooting at them, and all they had to do was move a little bit, and you just watch those floaty shells just fall into the ocean next to them. And I've never liked the ship. I mean, it to me, it's going to lend to a playstyle, and it might be the playstyle of all of the upcoming USN light cruisers. Is you're just going to either have to rely on a destroyer for smoke, or just find an island and make it your best friend and deploy the shore party. I'm not entirely sure yet, because we haven't got to test all of them. But I'm really interested to see, and I'm going to I typically play on stream, play a few games, and people ask questions and everything. But these are going to be some ships that I'm going to put some pretty heavy time into, just because I want to see what are they going to bring to the game. What are they going to add to the game that we don't already have? I mean, we already have light cruisers that are annoying, that are annoying to deal with, but are pretty easy to kill. Are these ones going to be the same way? Without them getting smoke, I mean, now they're going to have to sit behind islands, and are they going to have that? I'm sure they're going to have that lobbing, that lofty shell. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what goes on, but I personally am not a fan of the light cruisers, but the USN heavy cruisers I find to be very fun, and it's going to be refreshing to see the changes. But I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a new player friendly line, if that makes sense to you guys. I find the USN cruisers to be very difficult for people to play correctly, just due to the fact that they don't have any crutches to lean on. And what I mean by that is they don't have any torpedoes, or their HE alpha isn't that great. They what I mean? Like that's how I feel about that.
You also don't really know what you're getting into from the low tiers to the high tiers. Like when you're just starting out, the low tier cruisers for the USN, they're nothing like the higher tier ones.
I completely agree on that. And something that I wanted to add to that, and I'm glad that you brought up, the shell performance. For me as a destroyer player, especially someone who plays a lot of USN destroyers, I am very much used to that kind of floaty shell at that range. So as someone who plays a lot of USN destroyers, I actually didn't have much of an issue with the Columbia. Granted, you are correct. It just takes just a little wiggle of, the steering, and you can dodge a lot of shots, but I didn't take the accuracy module. So my shells are dispersed a little more. So, I had that high rate of fire, and I'm, having the shells get a almost like a shotgun pattern, a little bit better than normal. And so I've been pretty effective against destroyers, even at that range. So I think for someone who is used to US destroyers, used to German destroyers, are going to be, probably more comfortable with the USN light cruisers. I do agree there are times where it's really difficult to kind of figure out, okay, where do I need to be? What's kind of the best course of action to, not get just instantly sunk, because sometimes you definitely feel that way. But, if you're spotted, you could hit that radar button and see what's spotting you and instantly put the scare on them. So I'm curious as to see what the higher tiers are going to be, because I'm pretty sure it's going to have that same correlation of detection to radar. And with all the utility that they bring, it's definitely going to be different than, say, the British light cruisers that depend on smoke. And your statement about you don't have crutches, completely true. As we're testing, and of course is subject to change, these cruisers, I would say, are not for beginning players. You definitely need to know what you're doing going into the USN light cruisers.
Well, we do have several other topics that we need to cover today, and we've already spent quite a bit of time on the USN cruisers. So, but I guess the bottom line is we're looking forward to the new light cruisers and getting to test those in the upcoming few weeks. The 305 millimeter gun Russian cruisers Kronstadt and Stalingrad have been changed pretty significant to nigh unrecognizable compared to the first test version that we've had. Last time we covered the changes to their APU fuse timers, but in addition to that, Kronstadt is getting the following additional changes. An HP buff from 59,800 to 71,050, a Sigma increase from 1.8 to 2.05, plus a reload buff from 20 to 18.5 seconds. The Russian Tier 9 radar, similar to Dmitry Donskoy in the same spot as the spotter plane, and a detectability nerf to 16.2 kilometers. Stalingrad is getting similar changes, namely an HP decrease from 84,000 to 72,450, a Sigma buff from 2.05 to 2.25, AP normalizations and APZ normalizations similar to USN Heavy Cruiser, and finally a Krupp value buff, making her shells harder to break. She also gets the 20 to 18.5 second reload buff, better turret firing arcs than she currently has, and the Moskva Tier 10 Russian radar. Kami, every time we've talked about these ships, you've made a really good point that these ships don't bring any utility for the slot they occupy. How do these changes affect their desirability in randoms and competitive matches, especially when you consider just how tough it is to kill a ship like Kronstadt when it's theoretically a cruiser?
Woo, Stalingrad. It's finally happening. It's going to have radar, and I'm actually excited to see what Stalingrad has. I mean, I want to play it. Kronstadt, I'm glad that they finally are giving it a Sigma buff, because I got tired of playing that ship and shooting the shotgun that it was. And it has radar. So I feel like these ships are finally coming around to where they need to be. And I almost feel I'm glad. I guess I'll say I'm glad that Wargaming is taking all of these things and putting on them now, because it gives them the opportunity, if they turn out to be too strong, to take away some of this stuff, in the future. Before they're released. I kind of feel like they're just throwing everything on them and seeing how they work. And, in the new iteration of the ships. The HP buff for the Kronstadt, I never felt like when I played the Kronstadt, I was really in the fear of dying in that ship. That makes sense to you guys. I always felt like...
It totally does.
I always just felt like I couldn't do the offensive side of the ship, just I couldn't hit anything. And when I did hit anything, the HE shells would just shatter. If I was shooting HE. But now, I mean, it's getting radar, it's getting better Sigma, it's getting an HP buff. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. And then the Stalingrad, I mean, whew.
Well, a quick point there on you mentioned the Sigma, Kami. 2.05 Sigma is the Sigma that Tier 10 cruisers get. So Kronstadt's getting that at Tier 9. 2.25 Sigma, there is not another ship in the game that has 2.25 Sigma. So that's going to be the highest Sigma in the game on Stalingrad.
And the Stalingrad is AP only, correct?
That's what we understand it to be now, yes.
And they're giving it USN normalization?
Yes.
Man, that thing's gonna be a monster. It's just gonna be things.
It's gonna hit very precisely where you aim.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I've always said about this game is sometimes when you aim, you don't feel like the shells are going where you aim them. This ship is where you aim, and I guess where you miss is going to be where you put the shells. I'm excited to see. I honestly feel with all these changes, the Stalingrad might be just flat out too good. I don't know.
With these changes, you remember when we were testing Giulio Cesare with the old before they nerfed it?
Yes.
Like how accurate those guns were. This is how Stalingrad's going to be.
Yeah, and Kaloran, I think every time we talk about this, you always ask, what is this thing going to do in clan battles, right? Because it essentially has battle cruiser guns, right?
You're stealing my thunder, man.
I'm taking it away from you because you ask me every time. If the changes go through for this, the way that it is, and it stays that way, man, any clans that have been able to get their flags, and we'll get their flags for next season, man, you guys are gonna have a prize waiting, at the end of the rainbow, right? Like this is the pot of gold, and I can hear it now. Can you hear the whining? Do you hear it?
That's kind of the thing is this is going to separate the people that already have it from the people that don't. And is that a good idea? Giving this much power to people that have won 3 seasons?
Well, I think there has to be a reward, right? For people committing their time, for people being successful in clan battles. Just like people in ranked, right? People get black and flint, which I mean, I think the flint still to this day has the highest win rate of any ship in the game, I believe. Last time I looked, and when in black, you look at black and you're like, in a capable person's hands, I mean, that ship is deadly. So again, I think they've even said that there will be a different way to earn the Stalingrad, but I like that it's a reward ship. I like that there's a ship that out there that not everybody can have, because one of my biggest things about this game, and we've talked about this before, is people just being able to get premium ships. You go, oh, I played a game, I can go buy a Tirpitz. And then that person has no idea what they're doing. So I think it's a good thing that there is a reward ship that's going to reward people for accomplishing something in this game. Not everything needs to be handed to everyone. There needs to be some legitimate top tier ships. And if the Stalingrad, and we're not saying at all that the Stalingrad or the Kronstadt are going to stay this way. They may find out that both these ships, the way they're doing, are completely overpowered, and we don't know. Because I don't think we have the new version of the Kronstadt yet, and I know we haven't got to play the Stalingrad yet. I think the Stalingrad's still in some pretty, from what I could tell, pretty heavy testing, in the super test realm. But I look forward to seeing these, and I look forward to seeing the results because we'll know how the results happened if the Stalingrad, they're like, oh well, dev blog again, we're taking away this stuff from the Kronstadt or the Stalingrad. So I look forward to that. But with the changes that have been put up, I mean, these ships are going to be very good, and without any hands-on experience, I would say borderline maybe overpowered, depending on how people play them.
That's kind of my early read on both these changes as well. Vanessa, I know you said you had a bit of a harder time with Kronstadt, if I'm not mistaken. What do these changes mean to you as someone that wasn't able to kind of get it to perform the way you wanted it to?
Well, I mean, I'll actually be able to do offense, and that will be nice. And I'll actually be able to bring a bit of utility too. So yeah, I am looking forward to testing it. I'm looking forward to all the, battle cruiser operational memes out there, because this is going to be fun. Russian cruisers are a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm looking forward to testing it, especially with those railguns. And it's going to be crazy. With that amount of health and the way that you can just kind of, it's like you're almost a battleship, but you're really not. But you've got the HP. So yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to testing it.
Well, we have some other stuff we got to talk about today. So we'll just kind of wait and see how those ships come the next round of testing. Next up on our list of topics are the changes to the Tier 10 aircraft carriers. And this is going to have some effect on the King of the Sea matches that Kami was talking about earlier. We knew that the Midway was getting tweaked based on some previous devlog posts, but it was something of a surprise to hear that Hakuryu was also going to get a change. Midway is getting the following changes: a decrease in total hangar from 136 to 116 rather than the 96 previously announced. And this means that the base Midway will have 12 of each type of plane on its deck, with 23 fighters, 28 torp bombers, and 29 dive bombers in reserve. Hakuryu, on the other hand, is getting what can only be seen as a massive buff. Her strike loadout is getting changed from 233 to 3 fighters, 3 torp bombers, and 2 dive bombers. This gives the base Hakuryu 12 fighters, 12 torp bombers, and 8 dive bombers on the deck, with 13 fighters, 29 torp bombers, and 26 dive bombers in reserve. Her air superiority loadout remains unchanged in the 422. Theoretically, this is supposed to even out the differences between Midway and Hakuryu while retaining their different playstyles. Yet I was watching an analysis by Farazelleth yesterday, and I kind of really wonder how this will work out. And, especially Kami, since you're going to be doing King of the Seas with carriers in it.
Do we know for sure that this is happening before King of the Sea?
It's slated for 074. It's actually in the 074 public test.
Public test. Well, I think teams brought Midway last time and found out that it didn't work. So I wouldn't assume teams are going to bring Midway again. But hey, maybe. But I'm going to tell you the Haku, getting to be 332 is going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be overpowered, but it's going to, if the Midway keeps its lower tier fighters, the Haku is just going to beat on it. We're going to go back to Haku dominance again. We're going to see the Midways being put away, because 3 fighters is just a lot of utility. That's what it's always come down to, right? For competitive play, has been the Haku has just been able to put up so many more squadrons. Individually, yes, their planes may be a little weaker or whatever HP wise, but collectively as a unit, you're just able to see so much more of the map. And your reload, your rearming time is quicker. And the changes, I get they want to change the hangars of the Midway, because the Midway is able to throw away planes, essentially. But doesn't that take away some of the difference between the two carriers? I feel like you start squishing them together, you're just going to slowly see that the Haku is going to go back to be the dominant beast that it was. And honestly, I wouldn't have liked to have seen any changes to carriers until the rework happens. I think they should have just left them alone, let them do what they were doing, because if with the rework coming, it's going to change carrier life anyway. So they might as well just stop tinkering with things right now, because all you're going to do when the rework comes out is you're going to be like, this is going to be something completely different again. So I think, I don't know. I just, the Haku 332, I think is going to be nasty. And the Midway, I think is going to fall off a little bit. Maybe not on the damage side in randoms maybe, but more of just the utility side, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like you were watching the same video I was, the Farazalith one, because he made a lot of the points you just made, Kami, which if you didn't watch it, then yeah, pretty impressive analysis from your part.
Well, I conversate with Fair, because he is the for me anyways, the go-to CV guy. If I have any questions about CVs, I tend to ask Fair, because he's very knowledgeable about what's gonna, about CVs in the sense of how they impact the game. And he's a great guy. If you want to learn the right way to play CV, definitely Fair.
Yeah, no, for me, I think that, you're also kind of changing. There's not a whole lot of reason to take 4-2-2 anymore. Kami, like 3-3-2 is just a really nice balanced setup. And so you're like, okay, well, now why do we have 2 different setups for Hakuryu, right?
Well, think about it, right? When you think about the 3-3-2, you have enough fighter squads that you can tie up the Midway if you're playing against the Midway, and still have the strike capability of the Strike Haku, all built into one. You're basically the most balanced of all the line, for the Haku. I mean, it's going to be, I don't know. I guess it's just kind of, I don't know.
I don't know that it'll be successful. We'll see. It might get rolled back.
I don't think to be honest, I don't think the Haku needed any changes. I mean, it was fine having a 4-2-2 component and then the 2-3-3. I think it was fine that way. You either chose heavier on fighters and less on strike, because even 4-2-2, you still get 2 torpedo squads and 2 dive bomber squads, so you still cross drop DDs and do what you need to do. Now you're going to be able to fight fighter battles equally and do damage equally. So I feel like the Haku kind of, I don't know, maybe it was a numbers thing, maybe, because I know since the Midway got its buff that pretty much any carrier I saw at tier 10 was always a Midway. I very rarely saw Haku at all anymore. So maybe they were just looking at numbers and they're like, how can we make this more balanced? How do we see reoccurrent of Haku's playing the game again? Maybe that's what they saw. I don't know, but
Yeah, I think that may be kind of some of the root cause as well. Well, there were a number of additional changes announced on the dev blog that we honestly just don't have time to cover in depth on the podcast. So in no particular order, they were: the Varyaga is getting a reload buff from 9 seconds to 8 seconds. Z39 is getting a better turret firing art on her rear turret. Duca Deli Abruzzi and Prince Eugen are getting repair parties that can repair 33% of their Citadel damage. Massachusetts is being transformed into an American secondary battleship with improved damage control party and repair party to make her better able to brawl, with a corresponding nerf to her main battery Sigma. You will be able to sell your ARP ships in 0.7.4 and keep the port stops. I know people like Kami will be very happy about this. Columbia and Worcester are getting their consumable slots tweaked slightly. As a consequence of this, we learned that Worcester will have 5 consumable slots, which just completely boggles my mind. And then finally, the USN Tier 6 destroyer Monaghan is getting some buffs before we get to Testera again. That's a heck of a lot of information to process, folks, but if you have questions about these changes, please send them in via email, Twitter, Facebook, or the forum posts, and we'll try and answer them, maybe even on the podcast. Which reminds me that we need to do a Q&A podcast again sometime soon. Hint, hint, Vanessa. We have a few kind of last-minute announcements. If you're looking for some podcast swag, we've started up a store on Spreadshirt.com that makes podcast-branded shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, mousepads, and some other kind of cool things. You can find it at shop.spreadshirt.com/Warshipspodcast. Click the drop-down menu on the site to get a custom code for 15% off. Don't forget that we're anticipating a release date for patch 0.7.4 of April 25th, corresponding with the start of Ranked Season 9 on April 27th. Be sure to tune in next week for more in-depth on what we think you should play at both at Tier 8 and especially at Tier 10 for Ranked with Erun. Team Special Forces is hosting an event this weekend based on a recreation of the Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands. If you have an Enterprise or Shikoku, head on over to the forums and join in with them. We will definitely be linking that forum post in the episode description. Kami, Vanessa, did you guys have anything to add before we close it out for the week?
Just a preview for next week. Radar Minnow.
I really hope that was a troll, Kami.
Oh, no. I'm going to be talking about it. Yoda Man has issued a challenge, so I'll be talking about the Radar Minnow.
Okay.
Is this going to be like Dunkirk level?
Yeah. Yoda Man has issued a challenge, so I'll talk about it next week.
We'll look forward to that.
Yeah. On a serious note, though, I want to pass along the news. A lot of you in the community know that we lost a really good community member in Decipher, and he regretfully passed away a little while back. And we just want to give our condolences from the Warships podcast in the community to his family. He's definitely going to be missed, and he was a great presence on the forums. And one of the real big reasons why the World of Warships community is such a great and amazing community, and he will truly be missed.
Definitely agree with that. Well, that's it for this week, folks. As always, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Warships Podcast and Twitter at Warships Podcast for updates between podcasts. Don't forget to check out Kami on Twitch at twitch.tv/Kami Samurai and me at twitch.tv/The Warships Podcast. I've been trying to do some midday streams for people at kind of during the early hours of the day while I'm working from home. We, of course, want to thank our amazing Patreon backers. If you're interested in supporting us, please consider becoming a backer yourself. Backers get access to special giveaways like the Permaspace Camo our backer Osmo won several weeks ago. Take care, everyone, and we will see you in next week.